How does that
No,
look?
I'm not saying that. You get some sense that there's a handful of stocks.
Look at that. I mean, you could tie that to the market. Bang.
Whoa, twinsies here, man. I mean, it's almost like I called you up last night and said, "What are you going to wear to a commercial break tomorrow?"
We didn't even plan this. This is great. I got my great T-shirt on. You got your
Did
great. It looks like yours is more substantial than mine.
well, some say I am more substantial than you anyway, but that's not.
That's true.
Do you ever do that in school? Like call up your boy and be like, "Look, dude, I'm going to be rocking my Greg Landry jersey tomorrow. I'd like you to break it out as well, and we'll just kind of do our thing."
I don't think I ever used the term "I'm going to be rocking anything" in my entire life. But it's funny you mentioned Greg Landry, one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think the Lions, as a proud franchise, but also arguably, at least through periods, and poor Detroit, I think I think Motown is no joke, one of the great cities in our country. It's had an enormous renaissance off of the financial crisis and the urban blight and all that. But they've arguably had periods of some of the worst franchises in every major sport. I mean, if you think about how bad at times the Lions have been, but it's not just the Lions. I mean, and as great as those Wings teams were in the 90s, the Red Wings arguably were the worst team in sports for about 5 years. And let's not forget about the Tigers at times have also been bottom feeders. And we know that the Pistons, really before they found their glory days with the Blues Brothers, what did they call themselves? What were they?
Bruise Brothers.
I think they were the Bad Boys. Yeah, they were the Bad Boys.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, look, Detroit's a great town with a tough sports franchise. So I kind of got my Lions colors on, Greg Landry. And over my shoulder, I actually have a chart of the Ford Motor Company. And my understanding is not only is the stock doing well, but it's time to kind of look back on the history of this great American company and acknowledge who they are, where they come from, what they've meant to our past time, to our heritage.
Well, I'm looking at the chart, and I think it's trading around 1927, which is ironic because it was this time in 1927 that they introduced the Model A. The Model A. You like what I did there? I mean, I'm tying it all together.
What was A standing for? Because I thought it was the Model T, and my name is Tim, so I figured it was just something like that.
Yeah, well, of course. When you saw there was a Model T, you thought absolutely they named it after you. I know.
Or Mr. T.
I don't know, or Mr. T for that matter. Or Teru Tanaka, which one of the great wrestlers in WWE back in the 80s, if you recall.
No idea
that.
who you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, listen, let me just say this real quick about Major League Baseball and the Detroit Tigers. Obviously, the greatest uniform in professional sports, not baseball, is that of the New York Yankees. I don't think that can be challenged in any way, but I would submit the Detroit Tigers home uniform is, the Detroit Tigers home uniform is timeless, Tim Seymour.
Well, so is it the colors? Is it that really bright, almost burnt orange, along with just a nice, deep, dark blue that takes you where you need to go? Because
I love it, and it's the DT. It's a D, and it's the whole thing going on. It's just masterfully done.
Have they always been those colors, or did they possibly rip off the Chicago Bears or the Auburn Tigers? Because I'm thinking of those color schemes. Auburn might be a lighter blue. I think the monsters of the Midway would argue we were out there first with those colors. I don't know.
It's interesting you mentioned the Auburn Tigers. Again, probably the greatest college football player I saw was Bo Jackson. But again, another time for another show. But let me say this. I was a huge Al Kaline fan for whatever reason. I always thought as a kid that Al Kaline would have been a perfect Yankee. I thought certain people would have just been perfect Yankees. Al Kaline was one of them.
Was he Mr. Tiger? Am I making that up? Was that like his nickname? He was
Ernie
Mr.
Banks
Tiger.
was Mr. Cub. Yeah, and absolutely
right.
Al Kaline was Mr. Tiger.
So, if you think about Henry Ford, he was Mr. Auto. And Ford for so long really defined the automobile, the sexiness of the automobile when you think about what they started doing with the Mustang and some of those early makes coming out of Detroit. I know you were more of a Camaro guy growing up, and I know that you were doing something. I'm guessing. Hold on, let me figure. So I'm guessing by the time you were 16, you saved up your paper route money, and you bought yourself. And 16, so 63 Right. So 79. Yeah. So you were able to afford yourself. You went into the penny savers newspapers there,
Sure.
and the Auto Trader. Remember the Auto Trader? And
Absolutely.
and, and you had about 1,800 bucks to get yourself in like a 73 Camaro with a little bit of rust and the back rear wells, and you put some Bondo on there. And after school, you'd kind of throw that hoodie sweatshirt of yours, and you'd be out there sanding on a cold, like gray day on the Hudson in Croton. How am I doing so far, by the way? I mean, I feel
You're
like
doing you're doing really well, and pretty much every day was a cold, great day where I grew up. I mean, as you know, I mean, I didn't grow up in the Tony town like you did, but I'll say this: you're close. My brother Chris was the one that actually bought the Camaro. I had a
okay,
1970 something Buick Electra.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, a beast of a car, and probably allowed you more than a few fender benders, and nobody knew because those things were tanks. But back to Ford. Ford is not making tanks anymore. In fact, they're making not only fuel efficient, and cars that actually are, I think, mechanically sound in a way that for a while they're kind of like the Lions. Detroit lost its step. Of all the athletes that retired on top, Barry Sanders might be that guy. And we could get into Sandy Koufax, we could get into all the greats, but anyway, Barry Sanders. So is Ford back on top? Is Ford back on top?
I think they are, and you've talked about this for a while. I mean, under the leadership of Jim Farley, a Georgetown grad, by the way, they've had
Love them.
a renaissance, a great French word, at Ford, without question. And the stock is finally behaving as if the street and the market is giving them credit for exactly what they've done. I mean, I think the Ford vehicles are great. I think their vision is great, and I think their leadership is great.
So I had a 66. I bought myself a 66 Mustang my sophomore year at Georgetown from all my bartending money. Mom and Dad, I wasn't really going to class, but I wasn't doing something illicit. I was just tending bar, and candy apple red, spoked rims. I mean, the thing was gorgeous. The problem is I blew an engine on the way home from school, coming out at the end of sophomore year, and abandoned it somewhere at a garage in Maryland, never to pick it up again. One of the most embarrassing, sad stories I could ever tell, because this car was gorgeous, but it needed some engine work, and I'm not a gearhead. So what Detroit is doing now, but notably Ford, and I think GM too, they are evolving with the auto sector to not only have the connected car and to be possibly, exploring, autonomous and being there with the technology around Ultium batteries and lithium batteries, but obviously the whole world of EV is the place that the auto sector is going. And we know that with Tesla, that auto companies are rewarded for that almost disproportionately. And at this point, I don't think Ford and GM, despite that chart, and it's one of the great charts out there, I don't think those two companies have been rewarded yet, at least relative to obviously the granddaddy of them all right now. And it's not the Rose Bowl, it's Tesla.
I want you to think about this before we get out. There are four major sports franchises in Detroit: the aforementioned Tigers, Major League Baseball; the Pistons in the NBA; obviously the Lions in the NFL; and the Red Wings in the NHL. By the way, I think your Tigers just picked up Javi Baez on the free agent circuit.
He did.
So
yeah.
he's an ex-Met.
Enjoy that. Yeah, you know what I'm doing there.
Which one of those franchises will be the first to win a championship, Tim Seymour?
I think it's probably the Pistons. And the reason I say that is not because I could name three guys on the Pistons right now. It's because in the NBA, all it takes is a decent free agent class and getting the number one pick and having one or two studs coming out of college. So I'm going Pistons. I'm afraid, I don't think anything is happening in the Pontiac. Are they still in the Pontiac Silverdome? Where are they? Nothing good is happening there.
In Auburn Hills, Michigan, I believe. No, listen, I hear what you're saying there. I like what you did with the Pistons. I think the Lions are light years away. The Red Wings, a lot of time left for their rebuild. I would love to say the Tigers, but I mean, Major League Baseball is so top heavy. So I'm with you on the Pistons.
Either way, we are not the Bad Boys. We are not the Bruise Brothers. We are Tim and Guy. This is
Commercial break, brother.
See you soon.